Most men think power looks loud. They think presence comes from dominance, from talking more, from reacting faster, from proving themselves in every room they walk into. But the truth is, the most dangerous man is usually the calmest one there. He's not trying to control the room, and somehow he still does. He doesn't chase attention, but attention keeps finding him. He doesn't need to convince anyone who he is, because his energy already says enough. And once you understand why that happens, you start to realize something important. Calmness isn't softness. Focus isn't passiveness. And real danger doesn't announce itself. It moves quietly. A lot of men today feel mentally scattered. They wake up already overstimulated. Their attention is divided. Their emotions are reactive. Their sense of self changes depending on who they're around. And over time, this creates a very specific problem. You might still look confident on the outside, but internally you're easy to shake. One text changes your mood. One rejection ruins your day. One disrespectful comment lives in your head for hours. One attractive woman makes you abandon your center. And that's what most people can feel. Not just women. Everyone. People are constantly reading emotional stability. They're reading nervous energy. They're reading insecurity, pressure, and hidden need. And when a man doesn't have control over his own inner world, he becomes predictable. And predictable men are rarely respected, rarely trusted, and almost never deeply felt. Because the energy that pulls people in isn't force, it's grounded certainty. The kind that doesn't panic, doesn't perform, doesn't collapse under pressure. That kind of presence doesn't happen by accident. It comes from habits. And the men who seem naturally composed, sharp, and hard to move usually built themselves that way. Slowly, quietly. Repeatedly, human beings are deeply affected by nervous system cues. Most attraction, respect, and social power isn't created by words alone. It's created by what people feel around you. And what they feel is usually based on one question. Does this person feel safe inside himself? Because when someone is deeply regulated, they create a different emotional atmosphere. They don't leak desperation. They don't rush to fill silence. They don't overreact to uncertainty. They don't crumble when they aren't validated. That changes everything. Women especially tend to respond strongly to emotional steadiness, not because they want a robot, but because steadiness feels rare. A man who can remain calm under pressure signals strength. A man who can stay focused in a distracted world signals discipline. A man who doesn't need constant emotional reassurance signals self-possession, and self-possession is attractive. Not because it's flashy, but because it feels powerful without trying to. That's why these habits matter. They don't just improve your productivity, they reshape your energy. And once your energy changes, your relationships change too. When he stops reacting to everything, one of the first habits that makes a man calm and dangerous is that he no longer reacts instantly. He pauses. That sounds simple, but psychologically it changes everything. Most men live in reaction mode. Someone ignores them, they feel rejected. Someone challenges them, they get defensive. Someone disrespects them, they want to respond immediately. A woman pulls away, they panic and chase. That kind of emotional impulsiveness makes you easy to control. Because if people can predict your reactions, they can move you without much effort. But the man who pauses becomes difficult to manipulate. He doesn't answer every provocation. He doesn't chase every emotional spike. He doesn't hand over his nervous system to other people. He creates space between stimulus and response, and in that space is power. Real-life example. A woman takes longer than usual to reply. Most men immediately create a story. She's losing interest. I said something wrong. She's probably talking to someone else. So they double text, or become cold, or start performing harder for attention. But the calm man notices the urge to react and lets it pass. He doesn't collapse into assumption. He stays centered until reality becomes clear. That doesn't mean he becomes passive. It means he becomes deliberate, and deliberate men are dangerous because they cannot be emotionally baited as easily. 2. He protects his attention like it matters. Attention is one of the most attractive things a man can have. Not scattered attention, directed attention. Most people today are mentally fragmented. They can't stay with one thought, one conversation, one goal, one emotion. They're constantly escaping themselves through noise, and that creates weak presence. Because if your attention is always being stolen, you stop feeling solid. Psychologically, focus builds self-trust. Every time you hold your attention where you choose to place it, you reinforce one message internally. I am in command of myself. That's not a small thing. A man who can direct his attention doesn't feel slippery. He feels anchored. And anchored men naturally feel more masculine, more composed, and more attractive. Real-life example, you're on a date. She's talking about something subtle, something emotional, something easy to miss. Most men are half listening. They're thinking about what to say next, how they're being perceived. Whether she likes them, how to impress her, but the focused man is actually there. He listens fully. He notices tone, pauses, contradictions, emotion underneath words. That level of presence feels rare. And when someone feels deeply seen by you, your value rises without you needing to perform. Focus is attractive because it communicates discipline. And discipline is one of the clearest forms of masculine stability. 3. He gets comfortable with silence. A man becomes dangerous when he no longer feels the need to constantly explain himself, or entertain, or fill every gap, or rescue every moment from stillness. Because silence reveals something. It reveals who is uncomfortable without control. Most men talk too much when they feel uncertain. They over-explain, over-joke, overshare, over-justify. And usually, it's not because they have a lot to say. It's because silence makes them feel exposed. But a man who can hold silence without anxiety sends a completely different signal. He's not afraid of space, and that matters because emotional strength often shows up in what you don't rush to do. Real-life example, you say something honest to a woman. She looks at you and doesn't immediately respond. A lot of men panic in that moment. They start backtracking, they add more words, they try to soften what they said, they seek reassurance. But the grounded man stays with the moment. He doesn't rush to manage her reaction. That calmness creates tension, and tension, when held well, creates depth. Silence is powerful because it reveals nervous system stability, and people trust the man who doesn't need to constantly fill space to feel secure. 4. He builds a private life that grounds him. A lot of men want to feel powerful in dating, without having a life that actually makes them feel strong. So they become emotionally dependent on attention. On messages, on attraction, on validation, on being wanted. And that's dangerous in the worst way. Because once your emotional state depends on how others respond to you, you lose your center. Psychologically, this creates fragile identity. You feel good when things go well, and lost when they don't. But a calm, focused man has built a life that stabilizes him before anyone enters it. He has routines, standards, solitude, purpose, mental structure. He's not trying to escape his own life through romance. He's already rooted. Real-life example, a woman you like starts becoming distant. For the average man, this becomes the emotional center of his week. He checks his phone constantly. His productivity drops. His mood changes. His self-worth starts bending around uncertainty. But the grounded man feels the shift and still keeps his life intact. He still trains, still works, still reads. Still sleeps on time, still stays connected to himself. That's not emotional coldness. That's emotional structure. And structure is deeply attractive because it shows that your life is not fragile. A man becomes more magnetic when connection is part of his life, not the thing holding it together. 5. He stops needing to win every interaction. This is one of the most underrated habits of all. Calm, dangerous men do not waste energy trying to dominate every exchange. They don't need to be the smartest in the room, the funniest, the most admired, the one who always gets the last word, because underneath that behavior is usually insecurity. The need to win socially often comes from the fear of being overlooked. And ironically, the more a man tries to force status, the less grounded he feels. Psychologically, true confidence is often revealed through non-neediness. You stop trying to control perception. You stop chasing approval. You stop correcting every misunderstanding. You stop fighting for every ounce of significance. And when that happens, you become heavier. Your energy lands differently. Real-life example, someone makes a subtle jab at you in a group setting. A lot of men feel instantly threatened. They need to fire back, prove themselves, reclaim dominance. But the composed man reads the room first. He knows not every challenge deserves a response. Sometimes silence is stronger. Sometimes humor is stronger. Sometimes indifference is stronger. That discernment is powerful because danger isn't emotional explosiveness. It's controlled force. The kind that doesn't leak unless it chooses to, and that's what makes people take you seriously. 6. He learns to feel emotion without becoming it. This is where a lot of men get it wrong. They think being calm means becoming numb. It doesn't. A calm man is not emotionless. He's emotionally integrated. He still feels frustration, disappointment, jealousy, desire, attachment, but he doesn't become possessed by those emotions. That's the difference. Psychologically, emotional maturity means being able to observe your internal state without immediately acting from it. That's a rare skill. And it changes how you show up in dating, conflict, and pressure. Real-life example, you feel hurt by someone's behavior. The reactive version of you either explodes or shuts down completely. But the integrated version notices the feeling first. He doesn't deny it. He doesn't dump it carelessly. He processes it before expressing it. That kind of self-awareness creates emotional depth. And emotional depth is often what separates a man who is merely attractive from a man who is unforgettable. Because women don't just respond to physical confidence. They respond to emotional containment. A man who can feel deeply without losing his center feels rare, and rare always has value. 7. He becomes harder to rush. This is the final habit that quietly changes everything. He stops moving from urgency. Most weak decisions in dating and life come from internal pressure. The pressure to know, to define, to secure, to be chosen, to avoid uncertainty. And urgency often makes men abandon their standards. They rush into attachment, rush into commitment, rush into explanations, rush into emotional investment before clarity exists. But a dangerous man moves slower than his impulses. Because he understands something most men ignore. What you rush toward usually owns you. Psychologically, patience signals self-respect. It means you are not trying to escape discomfort by forcing outcomes. You can wait, observe, assess, and let people reveal themselves. Real-life example, you meet someone with strong chemistry. Most men immediately start fantasizing about the future, projecting meaning, attaching fast, but the grounded man enjoys the connection without surrendering discernment. He stays open, but he also stays awake. That combination is powerful, because when a man is calm enough not to rush, he sees more clearly. And clarity protects you from emotional chaos better than intensity ever will. At the deepest level, attraction is not just about looks, charm, or game. It's about nervous system influence. People are constantly asking themselves, often unconsciously, how do I feel around this person? Do I feel pressure, performance, instability, neediness, or do I feel calm, depth, safety? Tension without chaos, strength without noise. That's where real masculine presence lives, not in trying harder, not in becoming colder, not in acting detached, but in becoming internally steady. Because the truth is, most men are not unattractive. They're just unsettled, too available to every emotion, too affected by every shift. Too easily moved by attention, rejection, uncertainty, and desire. And when a man learns to hold himself well, everything starts changing. His words carry more weight. His boundaries become cleaner. His energy becomes more noticeable, and his presence becomes harder to forget. Attraction isn't created by force. It's created by emotional gravity, and gravity comes from inner stillness. So if you want to become calmer, more focused, and more dangerous, don't start by trying to look more powerful. Start by becoming harder to shake. Learn to pause, protect your attention. Respect silence, build a life that steadies you, feel emotion without drowning in it, and stop rushing what needs time to reveal itself. Because when a man becomes deeply grounded, he stops needing to prove who he is. And ironically, that's when people feel him the most. When you understand these dynamics, dating gets clearer. People get easier to read. And most importantly, you stop abandoning yourself just to be chosen. That's when your presence changes, quietly, permanently. And that's what makes a man truly dangerous.